It's a wild ride with Tesla stock, a roller coaster that rose $48 in a single day, marking its second best performance in history, only to plunge $20 the very next day. But amidst this volatility, sure enough, Tesla's business is roaring like a beast unleashed. Today, we'll review the big milestones on the horizon just months away. While the stock's twists and turns remain anyone's guess, we've got 20 game-changing milestones coming over the rest of this year. We'll take a look at each of these. We've got the bulls here with us today. We've got Tesla Boomer Mama, the Queen, Alexandra Mertz, the Power Bull, Brian White from Future Aza, the Numbers Bull, and James from InvestAnswers, the Analytical Bull. Welcome, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, Herbert. Nice glasses.
Yeah, I'm trying it out because my eyes have been bothering me. So I thought when Jeff gets back, all of us needs to be wearing glasses for the very first time ever. Let's start talking about Tesla stock. It's very, very volatile. The company and the product. I don't look at the quarterly stock movement.
A very realistic bull, questioning certain decisions.
The rational bull. We enjoy listening to bears.
Looking for the red flags. You're supposed to react.
Industries that are ripe for disruption, and then invest hard.
James, I don't know anyone better to ask and for you to tell us what's going on, maybe tell us what's happening with the economy as well. And I'm looking forward to sharing these milestones that I've created that we're going to go step by step as well. James, tell us what you're seeing here.
Yeah, let's say I would call this an unbelievably volatile ride. And I can't remember the exact moves, but April 3rd, we were like 270. April 4th, 235. That's like a 12-13% drop in a day, and then a slight recovery, and then a wicked fall. I think so. Recovery on the 7th, and a wicked dip on the 8th, down to 218, which was a killer entry. In full disclosure, I grabbed a lot of 220 and a little bit at 214. Blew a lot of my powder because it was just a great opportunity. I mean, how can you be as certain for something, not financial advice, that's going to go to probably 500 by the end of the year and buy it for 200 and have so many tailwinds that we're going to go through milestones, and I tried to assign probabilities to your milestones. It's bonkers what this company has going on. It's absolutely incredible. It would make anyone froth at the mouth. Anyway, recovery yesterday, second best day since the IPO ever. I think it was 23.1% gainer or something like that, insane. And a lot of that was fueled by short squeezes. And today back to normal. I mean, the big thing that I see here in the market is nobody understands what's going on. Nobody can decipher the tariff tensions and the tariff tantrums. Nobody can understand the correlation between what exactly going on with Tesla, with the vandalism, with geopolitics, with tariffs, with different markets around the world. It's all over the place. And if you were solely just to read mainstream media, you'd sell the thing. You'd probably short it overnight because it's just a FUD storm. And we're even losing good analysts day by day to the dark side. So it's just bizarre. But for those who do not have a Tesla bag, if you see it at 220, under 220, grab a couple of shares. Not financial advice, but it is by far the best risk reward that I can find on the marketplace. So that's the roller coaster.
Great summary. Thank you, James. You're really good at this because you follow the ups and downs. You follow it very closely. But Brian, you don't do that, right? You long-term investor, you just buy and then you've held this on along. How do you have your conviction, Brian?
Well, what changed in the last few weeks? What actually changed? Well, you could say with the tariffs, things got this much worse for the automotive portion of what Tesla's doing. That's this much change to one portion, which will in the future be the smallest portion. The cybercabs are going to be made entirely domestically, and they're so cheap it doesn't matter. The autonomy is kind of a without borders product. It's really more of a service. The tariffs don't apply to services the same way. And it's a homegrown thing. Doesn't matter. It's the biggest part of the business. The bots, those are going to be entirely homegrown. So the only material impact I've seen from the one big thing that moved the stock so much, that moved the entire market so much, doesn't really apply. So if you liked it at 300 and you didn't like it at 220, I don't know what to tell you. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I think if someone was scaring you at that point, maybe you should be taking advice from different people.
Right, Brian. So you've got James, right? Is it fair to call you an momentum investor, James, where you will buy when it's low and you go in big, but you'll sell, you play the options, of course. Then Brian, you are just, you bought it as long as you can and held it as long as you can. Alexandra, you kind of played a little bit with just a small amount on options, but then did you stop? You said you learned your lesson on that, or where are you now at?
I still have a couple. And I have to admit, sometimes I just want to gamble, but I see it as a gamble, right? When I buy options, so these are for January 2026, I just feel like I'm so convinced, like James, on what's coming, that I want to have some options. But it's a full gamble. I've lost money on options. My retirement is not at all based on options. It's on a 100% all-in stock portfolio for Tesla. And James is right. This has been a wild week. And for the older ones of us in the stock market, James, I'm looking at you. While it's fun, we've seen so much worse, right? And I just have the feeling that if you understood that this is political and can change at any second, right? At any second, they can find negotiation paths, or they can close them, or they can double the tariffs, or they can lower them. But it's not an event like COVID, or it's not an event like the great financial crisis that needs time to play out. It is something that, sure, can change every day. And I think that's why Wall Street was running around like chicken without head, including some of our analysts who didn't do themselves a favor. But it is because they are so focused on thinking they know how to predict the next day, the next week, the next month. They're not looking any further, right? And so suddenly there was so much movement there and so little indicators. And if you don't know Trump, and if you don't know his decades-long wish to tackle negotiations for goods, and whenever I hear people saying, yes, but he doesn't speak about services, well, because services are sold differently. Services are not coming in a container ship and arriving at the port, and then there is a customs. That's not how it works for services. So lots of people had to learn up about what tariffs are, how this works, how quickly they can be applied. And I do believe it's going to still be quite a ride the next 90 days until obviously we'll have first agreement soon and whatever. But this tariff topic is not just going to go away. And as Jeff, while he's not here, I try to at least repeat what he told us. As Jeff is right, the shock in the supply chain is there, right? I mean, these Chinese container ships that are now heading somewhere else or heading back home, they had merchandise on there that were supposed to go somewhere. And half of them is usually consumer goods that so far at the minima under $800 could come here tariff-free. That ends on the 2nd of May. So there are a couple of things, that are still in the movement and will have direct impacts on the US supply chain and on products we know and we want to purchase. That there will be, medium-term, short and medium-term effects of this. I hope they're not too big. But again, I think this is all worth it. And my stance on the tariffs, and I made it very clear Tuesday in that space. So I think this is really necessary and will clear a lot of things. And from there up, it will go upwards.
On that note, by the way, I saw an alarming video out of China yesterday, and it shows how in the space of just this week, factories have literally been shuttered, ground to a halt, orders canceled, stuff stuck in transit. You think things are bad in the Western world. In China, they are really suffering because they do a lot of JIT management and everything else, and everything is ground to a halt. It is
completely agree. And
alarming.
These ships already were booked out for the next shipment and the next shipment and the next shipment. And so here they are stuck with merchandise on them, not knowing where to go. And I mean, Europe can only take so much. And so, yes, I mean, it shows actually the power of the American presidency, industry, and the consumer, just because, this is the most liquid market, and this is and the most consumer oriented market in the world.
What I'd like to do is, you actually called it really, really well, Alexandra. So 2 days ago on Tuesday, we did a space, and you were saying to people that, you know, a lot of people, most people were very concerned about what might happen. That was like, everything was crazy. But you said, I think you felt that things were going to turn around. You called it correctly. So I'm going to play a little clip of what you said a couple days ago. We feel. Let's move on to other topics, but any final comments regarding this? Anybody have anything that's even different opinion than others?
I just want to state again that I'm by far not as pessimistic and catastrophically hysterical that most people are here. I honestly think they have actually multiple plans. I have referred last night again on how Trump opens negotiations. He goes in there very bold and needs a fraction of it. I still think there is too much conflicting information between the ones that pledge for zero tariffs, the other that pledge for at least 10% minimum tariff for everybody. That would help in the Treasury. I think there's just too much mess outside, but I do believe that a lot of countries are acknowledging very, very quickly that they owe a lot to the United States and want to do compromises, including Mexico and Canada, and of course European Union. And I think that there's just been too long. If you see what happened the last 4 years under the Biden administration, and it's not to become political, but there's just so many people who have taken advantage of the United States because there was nobody having any oversight and making it clear what's happening. This is now a counter reaction. I'm not saying everything is perfect, by far not. I wish this was much quieter. I don't like all this name calling on X. I don't think it's a good thing by Elon. And you know what Elon fangirl I am, but I honestly think that this is not necessary to be done in a public space, be it. But I also think that we should give them the benefit of the doubt, because many things have to improve. For 50 years, the United States have bought goods from everybody else, and everybody else is just coming when they need something. And now the moment has come that this has to be straightened out. Is it a short-term pain? Yeah. But if we all add to it by telling how horrible it is, that doesn't help anything. And I just want to make sure that I am on the record. And yes, Omar, you're right. I may cry when the results come, but you could actually have me on tape after the last earnings call, where I told everybody that this year is going to be a tough year, and salvation is coming next year. So I honestly don't think I'm going to cry. I actually hope that they succeed. I really thoroughly hope they succeed. Do I see the path yet? No, I don't. Do I wish I would see it? Of course I do, but I'm by far not as pessimistic.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Alexandra. Yeah, you're referring to that we are all expecting, and we'll talk about it, the earnings call that's coming up in a couple weeks from now, that it's not going to be good news. It's going to be, negative for Tesla. But we got to go through this period. Yeah. Any thoughts?
I don't even think we should blame the current tariff discussions, because those happened in April, right? The results are for January to March. So the Q1 will be difficult, but Q2 will be difficult as well. And we told people that after the earnings call in January. It's just the ramp of the Model Y, now the tariffs, then the ramp of the Cybercab. This will all eat up a lot of resources and not translate immediately to money coming in. It's just the way it is.
Brian, what's your estimate for, we're going to do a deeper dive in earnings, but just briefly, what you're thinking about Q1 earnings?
I think it's going to be positive. I don't know what to agree. I've seen Wall Street saying 50 cents a share. I think that might be a little optimistic. But as we all know, Tesla's over. It's doomed. Nobody is buying the cars. The protesters who stand out on Saturdays and watch cars roll out past them all day have convinced me that there's no more sales. I did a show recently with Cern Basher where we looked at, if in a vacuum, what would we expect the volume to have been for Q1, if Elon was, if it was just normal, and it looked exactly like what we saw for production, and deliveries is a different question. There was a huge drawdown in inventory leading up to Q1. So that supply need to be replenished. When you're doing last second deliveries, you run into expedite costs. You don't want that. So of course they're going to build up their days of inventory. They still have the lowest in the industry. So I think a lot of this is priced in. The only real dip I expect to see in terms of profitability is because the new line has inherent inefficiencies that have yet to be worked out and new costs that they've just begun amortizing. But that may be offset by the ability to write off the remainder of undepreciated assets that were tied specifically to the first models. And I am not pessimistic for earnings, but then again, I've never built a model that successfully predicts earnings.
Yeah. So glad to have you here, Brian. One of the best retail analysts out there. Check him out at Futuraza. James, before we move on, any last comments on a stock, but maybe you can give us an understanding, economy. And the reason I say this, right, is because what I've learned in the last several years, is Tesla specifically a growth story stock. None of these milestones that I'll lay out won't do anything to the stock if the economy is terrible, if we're in a recession, if it's a risk-off environment. What are we going to expect, James, for the rest of the year?
Yeah, Q1 is looking pretty brutal, as we all know. GDP now are expecting very negative rates for Q1. The question is what happens in Q2. And the economy is like a big tanker. It takes a lot to move it up and down. Because of the tariff tantrums, that's made a lot of executives hit the pause button for hiring, producing, scaling, borrowing. Rates are high. There's always a recession happening. We've got multiple industries in the US in recession right now and have been for a long time, like commercial real estate, residential real estate, all the ancillary industries, manufacturing, retail. I mean, I joked last week in a tariff video, if you walk into any furniture store in the country, any time of the day or weekend, you'll be alone. There's nobody buying furniture. And that's just one example. It is staggering. I mean, the economy is definitely very bad. But by the time the world realizes the economy is bad and the government says we're in a recession, we're already one leg out of that recession already. So it's always a good time to buy in a recession, is the old rule of thumb that I like to use. So that's kind of where we are. The economy is definitely bad, and high interest rates. Nobody has cash. So if you look at personal savings, they are desperate. You look at default rates on car loans, they are at all-time highs. 6.1, 6.2 million people are 90 days behind on their mortgage payments. I mean, all across the board, it is nasty. Like it's C19, GFC nasty out there. Not to throw a wet blanket on everybody, but that's just a fact of life.
And then would you give a guess on what you're thinking for the rest of the year? What might happen?
The recovery will be quick. Once things are settled, so what happens is when people hit the pause button, it creates a lot of pent-up demand. And when the pause button is released, there's a huge surge of demand and a huge surge of business and a huge surge of GDP growth. I also believe there'll be stealth QE happening. I know that there could be 4 or 5 rate cuts this year that will fuel a lot of liquidity. So Q3, Q4 will be incredible. Q1 in the toilet, Q2 probably half in the toilet. That's my take. Brian.
Well, I was going to say that if no one's buying, I haven't been to a furniture store. That's a fantastic indicator I hadn't thought of. Maybe it's a good time to buy, not decorating advice, guys, but you've got those opportunities. You can't miss them. Looking at delinquencies is serious. I don't know how quickly things like that typically recover, but it is a very strong indicator. And the problem I'm seeing with businesses in Q1, we saw $8 billion of EV and battery factories for parts and finished products canceled in the US due to uncertainty, due to concerns that the battery credits, the car credits may soon be gone. And with the relaxing of the CAFE standards, among other things, the demand, it's going to be good times for GM and Stellantis and Ford to be making gas guzzlers. They may not have to buy any ZEV credits for the next 3.5 years. And if that's the case, it's going to be, it puts downward pressure on EVs. It makes it difficult that way. But what businesses love more than anything is predictability. They want stability, and changing policies radically every even year is too often. Certainly every 90 days, certainly every week is much too much. And it a lot of business will simply go elsewhere. And that's my biggest concern, is some of the smaller contracts that are being canceled that will just not come back.
Let me answer that, Brian. I don't think business will go elsewhere. I actually think businesses are going to come back to the United States. And I don't want to parrot what President Trump tells us what's coming back. But I mean, there are big investments both in pharma and in tech. Obviously, the IRA had a good impact on battery manufacturing, even though it didn't go as far as everything that was announced. But I think actually businesses are coming back to the United States. And now to the furniture shops from James. I mean, we are the same generation, James. That's it. We all learned the same basics, right? Talk to the taxi driver, look at the furniture stores. The only thing with furniture stores now is that people stored up on new furniture so much during COVID, right? Because they were so busy from 2021 to 2022 to buy furniture, that you see now a reduction, just, tailing out of that demand, because how often do you change your furniture? Much less than anything else. I actually think that restaurant visits is a much better indicator, and I see, I've been traveling a bit the last couple of weeks. I see people going to restaurants as much, if not more than ever before. High-end restaurants, fast food chains, cars standing in the drive-through lanes forever. So I don't see really a drop yet. And the other good news is actually inflation. I mean, inflation has come down so quickly. I don't know as we speak whether the gallon is below or above $60, but I mean, this is going to be such a number that, I mean, not for EV drivers, but for everybody else, that is going to procure directly cash in the pockets of people, right? And I mean, there are so many in the United States that live paycheck to paycheck. So I actually don't see a recession on the consumer side coming that quickly. I hear you that a couple of factories will feel the supply chain interruption or disruption, and that this is going to be more complicated than they wish it would be. But I also do believe that actually many understand how necessary this was. I saw yesterday morning an interview, a really good interview of Jamie Dimon on, I think it was on Fox Business or on CNBC, I don't remember anymore, but he was really very precise on how supportive he is and how necessary this is, and how this forces every company to check every accounting line to see how to improve, because it is like getting ready for a drier quarter or 2 or 3. If it is a recession, it's going to be very short. But it really cleans house. So we will see layoffs. We actually saw 200 layoffs today from GM in their EV segment. So, I'm not saying there is no issue, but it's also a good cleanup time. And I don't see it with the end consumer yet. I really don't.
I haven't seen it with the end consumer yet. I would say there are people are filling their dance cards with other partners, and it is unclear if we'll make it back into the rotation on some of those. If you look at during the last trade war, when China put import duties, steep tariffs on soy, the U.S. soy farmers never got those contracts back. They just moved to Brazil. That's just farmers that are now incapable of accessing that market. I'm just fearful of the number of industries that I may never think of, that I may never see, that will just vanish or struggle or any of that. And I just think that a graduated approach, a stepped in, phased in kind of approach is something I would feel more comfortable about. But my background is not in economics, so I will, defer to the experts who have degrees in those things, have decades of experience in those things too.
You don't learn this in business school. I can tell you that. I mean, I don't remember much I learned in business school, I have to say, also because it's a long time ago. But it's sure. I mean, do people realize that what Trump is trying to do is force these countries in the negotiation? That's why he's not going in there and saying, okay, you give us zero tariffs, I give you zero tariffs. That's not what he wants. He wants zero tariffs at the end as well, but he wants to oblige them to purchase from the US, could be energy. That's obviously the quickest and easiest. Will for sure be agricultural products, cotton, soy, whatever. And so there are a lot of sectors where these countries can purchase American and will in the future purchase American. And that is going to help the whole industry, because of course initially it will help the bigger firms, but they obviously have their smaller suppliers. The smaller suppliers go to restaurants to help the restaurants. So in the end, it's going to trickle through everything.
I hope you're right.
And
I'm very optimistic. Yeah.
And this chart here backs up what Alexandra said as well. The year-on-year inflation rate is 1.34% because of the drop in price of eggs and gasoline. And now owner's equivalent rent is dropping as well. But that's a very laggy indicator. They typically measure that a year almost behind the times. So that's just beginning to come true as well. But this could all change very rapidly, instantaneously with tariffs. If all of a sudden everything that Walmart and Target sell goes up because it comes from China, that will change overnight. So
if it comes, because I think the empty shelf syndrome is probably much more likely than just seeing these Chinese goods now costing double. I don't know what's going to happen to Shein and Temu and all the clothes sellers on Amazon, which are directly shipping from China to the US, who up to now had the no tariff because of the minimalist of the $800, right? If you order anything under $800, it came up to now in here under Trump 1, under Biden, and the first 3 months at zero tariff, right? And so if you ordered your sweater at $20, it arrived here at $20. Now, from 2nd of May onwards, it will cost more than the double. And of course, they may look for other markets and whatever, but I do just believe that at $40 or $45, there's no interest for this sweater anymore.
Yeah,
I would agree with that entirely.
Well, let's we'll see what happens. Economy, there's a full-on trade war right now with China, and they are massive. They're going to, make or break everything. Forget the other 70 countries is China. But the inflation is coming down, and so we need to see the Fed cut rates. The reason I bring all of this up, and we were talking about this before we get to the milestones, is that, as I said earlier, Tesla stock, if that's what you're looking at, if you're invested in Tesla, the economy matters, right? It's the thing that people are going to be looking at the stock. And if the main business is stable, then the other stories will matter. So will these 2025 milestones, will they make a difference? So if we take this list here, and I just put this together in the recent days, as you guys know, I've kept track of every single milestone that Tesla's ever had, even since its IPO. So I've got one from 2020, 2012, all the way here, 2023, 2024. This is the 2025 one. And look at these ones that are got completed as of where we're at today. And so a lot of these I found to be interesting because I was shocked with them a little bit. For example, the Model Y launching in early January. I thought that was a lot earlier than we all thought it was going to happen. The Megapack factory Shanghai launching again in February. We were all very impressed at how quickly that came out to be. FSC China, many people didn't think the FSC China was going to happen, especially during that time. They thought that China was going to retaliate, but nope, the FSC was able to be approved in China. We've been watching videos left, right, and center. The third Megapack factory, Elon kind of let it slip at the earnings call saying, oh yeah, we've got a third Megapack factory. Later, we find out that it is in Texas. And so that was a nice surprise. Of course, the Q4 production deliveries, I wasn't surprised with it, but certainly many people were. And then recently we learned about the 4680 batteries is now the lowest cost. That was that took years for 4680 to finally get to fruition. But in fact, not only are they lowest cost, they're now talking about 4680 is going to scale this year. And this is critical, especially just today. We had Lithium Refinery announced that it's Tesla's actually launched now. All of this important because many of these are associated with batteries, right? Megapack factory Shanghai, Megapack factory in Texas. You got the 4680 batteries in lithium. And remember how Elon said that it's the battery constraint was the biggest issue for Tesla at this point. Before we talk about the milestones upcoming, anybody have comments about the milestones we've accomplished?
Yeah, I think the lithium factory is huge. And that's the only one, I think, in North America, if I'm not mistaken. Isn't that
I am
correct?
not aware. I am not aware of a second one in North
It is.
America. We only
Yeah, it
have
is, yeah.
in the U.S. We've only got one lithium mine. Mexico has 0. Canada's got, I think, 6 or 7. So lithium is not our jam. Looking at this list, I'm with you. Model Y launch to me, January 10th was ahead of schedule. Megafactory Shanghai, about on schedule, but frankly, a little early. I was expecting March. FSD in China came out of nowhere for me.
Yeah.
Third Megafactory, didn't see it coming. I mean, Q4 production deliveries, that just happens. That's on the calendar. But and I will be looking forward to seeing, I haven't yet read the details on the refinery launch. So this is, I mean, these are big, big milestones, and I'm very excited about them.
And Brian, per Navarro, don't they just assemble the lithium refinery?
My goodness, I
That's
felt
unreal.
dumber having seen that.
Oh,
I couldn't believe it. What a gross misunderstanding of absolutely everything. Oh, it's embarrassing.
Yeah. There we
Mhm.
go. North
That's
America,
like-
there you go.
News
Boom.
today. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
news today. So that's great news.
And I will be going to Shanghai Sunday. I'm leaving Sunday. I'll be out there for, through the rest of the month for the auto show and to meet with a number of manufacturers and hopefully suppliers and parts makers as well to see what's going on there.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch your videos that you'll do because we actually have one of ours going deep into every one of the cars that we keep hearing about, how important they are and what they look like and quality and all that. Great job, Brian. All right, so this is where we're at today. Here's what's coming up. And I counted 20 milestones. Now, this is not even complete, or maybe I'm kind of like did something wrong here. I'm not saying this is perfect, but we
You
have
don't
the
have
earnings.
Grok in there. Grok in the cars is missing.
Damn it! I already forgot one. Yeah.
Is that expected this year?
This
Yeah.
month.
It could actually be this month. We'll see. You're right. So you got the Q4 earnings call, company update. They called it a company update, by the way, not just earnings call on April 22nd. We're expecting Europe. We saw a video dropped by Tesla about FSC in Netherlands. You got the Ashok Goswami talking about FSC in Europe. So that looks like it's ready to come. And some people are talking about the affordable vehicle. Maybe they're being announced at the earnings call, the company update, but sometime they said that it was going to happen in the first half. We've not heard anything that this might be delayed, but there's rumors. We don't know. I've already changed this, I think, but the Cortex 100,000, we moved that off to the second half at this point.
Yeah.
And then before we go talk to June, anything about this quarter?
Yeah, I assigned some probabilities to your list, which I thought would be a fun thought experiment.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned at the beginning, it's a slide there that's popping up. And I could be completely off base here, but what I wanted to do is look at all this list and it shows you exactly how much is coming, assign a probability, and then next phase will be to assign an impact on the share price for
Yeah.
each of these. Some are minimal, some are very impactful. In fact, when it comes to Q1, Brian, you're very bullish on Q1 results for Tesla. There's 2 wild cards that could save the day. That's Megapack, bottom line attribution, because their sales were 115% up year over year with 30% margins. That's going to be big. And we don't know how much revenue will be realized for FSD uptake. So there are 2 wild cards that could save the day and take us above 45 cents a share. So fingers crossed. But this list, some things I think are in the bag. Some things I'm really not sure of. And some things are very interesting, like the affordable Model 2, as I call it, Model 2.5, whatever you want to talk about. I think Texas Megafactory will launch in H2.
Yep.
I think they'll smoke 2.2 million vehicles, 4680 at scale, 75%. I don't have a high probability in that, but I think there's a 0.75% chance they could do it. Dojo Gen 2, 70%. That's such a black box. We don't really know what's going on. Cybercab pilot in Austin, 55%. I'm super conservative on that because
Wow.
it's such a groundbreaking thing. But I do believe if you go to July, it goes to like 75%, 80%. But that's going to be a complete game changer, as well as the Model 2. Although the narrative for the company is not about vehicles anymore, it's autonomy and bots. And we'll get into more of those too. So there's some of my probabilities. I'd love to know what other people think.
90% odds of vehicle sales greater than 2.2 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you're an outlier there. I've
I
not
would-
heard
I would
anybody
say that.
except you for the first time say
Just
that.
look at the Model Y. Model Y was the best-selling car on the planet. Look at the sales in China for March and propel that forward. And there's your answer. Model 3 is also selling like hotcakes. And once the US recovers, as we talked about with GDP in the second half of this year, it'll be liftoff. Remember as well, they can scale. They have the capacity to do 2.5 million vehicles around the world, maybe more. But who can compete with Tesla? You got Grok in the car. You got FSD. I mean, who in their right mind would buy anything but a Tesla late 2025? That's why I believe they've got the capacity and they'll have the demand as well.
I would say that 2.2 is definitely too high, regardless of demand for the Model Y, because the first quarter dip was substantial. You know, we're off from that target already hundreds of thousands of units that would have to be made up in the second half in the last 3 quarters. Cybertruck sales are not exploding just yet, although we did see today on the Middle East configurator, a rear-wheel drive option is available for order at 61,000. So that is something that I think could resurrect a demand wave in the US to get it another 20,000 lower, make it that much more affordable. But I still think that number, and while the Model 3 may be selling like hotcakes, I've worked at IHOP. I can tell you no one buys hotcakes. They just come for free on the side. Maybe twice a week someone would actually order them. It is a fantastic car. It is the best car of its form factor. It's not even close. You could get a Camry for more money and have a worse car. Why would you? But people just don't seem to understand the value that's there in the Model 3. And I'm doing my best to let it be known. I don't know what else we can do to get the word out, but the car is not selling in the way that I would expect it to based on the value proposition.
Well, and to challenge you there a little bit on that as well, Brian, if you look at the just from China, I think China in March was up 18.1% year over year and still up. Q1 was up year over year when the factory was closed for 4 weeks.
Third best month China has ever had for production in the Tesla factory. And it wasn't fully ramped yet, but that is one market. We've had excess capacity in Austin for ever since the ramp really got underway there. They've just made their 400,000th car. Berlin's just made their 500,000th. I'm excited to see what those sales figures can be, because when you've got the best selling model in the world, how do you sell more? Well, you make it better and make it cheaper at the same time. And with the new production methods, it looks like they've been able to do both of those. So I am hopeful, but 2.2 million would be, a big number. And I think it's certainly not a 90% chance in my view.
Are you above 2 million, Brian?
I am not. I am below 2.2 million.
Yeah.
I'm below 2 million.
But there's also the other wild card is the publicity campaign happening in Q1 in North America and around the world. No such thing as bad publicity.
There is bad publicity. I won't argue whether this is good or bad, but there is bad publicity. When Jack in the Box had their E. coli outbreak, that was not good publicity.
Sure. That's bad. Yeah.
Yeah,
but you have this revenge buying thing happening now, and you've got people that would never even consider buying one or buying one. So anyway, we'll see where it goes.
I'm excited when the data comes out. I'm with you, James. We will have that data. It's lagging. It is a 3 to 6 month minimum lag to see what that actual trend is. Yeah. There are people who are definitely buying it just because of the political situation. There are definitely people who are not buying it because of the political situation, because of the age of the channel that I have. I've got people who were early adopters, people who were buying 2, 3, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, who knows, a million years ago. So those are the buyers that are more likely to show up in my comment section, in my Patreon. So I do not have a representative sample to go by.
And I want to say as well, Herbert's list is fantastic, but everything is interrelated. It's all connective tissue. Interest rates need to come down. The Model 2.5 needs to be released. Some Cybercab needs to be produced, etc. These all go into the 2.2 million factor. If they can flip out of Cybercab in 5 seconds or 15 seconds, who knows?
Yeah, that won't be in production until next year, though. Scale production until next year.
But they still have to tiptoe into it. So
I looked at your entire list and all the probabilities, and I actually ended up agreeing with everything except for the 2.2, except for the 55%. And then that one I'm going, I get you. I get why you're saying that. But boy, 55% on the Cybercab pilot in Austin. And by the way, it's not called Cybercab. I changed it to Robotaxi pilot in Austin.
So James, were you answering for Cybercab specifically or for Robotaxi generally?
I think they're going to try and pump, like, even if it's 20 cars, which they have already, they'll be those golden, shiny little two-seaters.
I think I'm sure all of us have talked about this. I agree that there will be a lot of threes and or Ys, probably just Ys because they make them there, and a handful of Cybercabs because that's the crown jewel.
Yes, it is. And that's what he's going to push for. Just like he pushed for no steering wheel, no pedals. He's going to push to have a couple of those running around the road. And if that doesn't happen, people will be disappointed. Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Appreciate you doing that. And then, what you were saying though, James, is like, what of these are actually going to be catalysts for the stock?
Oh, yeah. Well, I broke out 4 slides with all probabilities for all of your stuff: Robotaxi, robots, 2026 as well as 2025. Again, the big ones are, if we could have some evidence that there's a legion of 5,000 Optimus running around.
See, I agree with you
and
there.
a couple of those out of suppliers, even if they're just, I don't know, picking their nose in the corner, just having them at a supplier shop, that would be a huge catalyst. The Model 2.5, huge catalyst. Autonomy, Cybercabs in Austin, huge catalyst. And then Wall Street will say, well, there's only 20 cars or 500 cars or whatever. It's not enough. Waymo has more. We're still going to get all that FUD. So I still think we're going to have great buying opportunities until we'll see that massive uptick in take rate for FSD. I mean, I'm still hoping for FSD unsupervised. I'm working on a list of all the use cases for FSD unsupervised. You know, people who are disabled, kids going to school, people that want to go to the wine country at the weekend and have a car take them, and all that type of stuff. It's going to be mesmerizing. And it's close. How close? We're not sure.
What are you thinking, Alexandra?
I was thinking that I don't understand how James can put 55% on the Cybercab in Austin in June. I think that is for me a 99%.
Exactly.
I'm happy to be proven wrong. We all win if I'm wrong.
Yes,
I just think it's going to fall to July. That's all. Because June is so close. I think, as I said, it's going to go to 80% in July. Things slip 4 weeks quite often.
Like James said, it is such an ambitious, unprecedented thing because this isn't like a lot of the driverless solutions we see where there is a driver, they're just not in the car. That's more like automotive puppeteering. This is trying to do a genuinely automotive, autonomous situation. It's much bigger, it's much more difficult, and that's why it hasn't been done.
Yeah, I think the only reason Alexander is saying that, right, is because just in the last 2 weeks, we've had a barrage of posts, announcements, everybody, lots of, at least 4 Tesla senior executives or employees came out and said that this is happening in June, like very specifically.
Yeah, and thanking the city of Austin, thanking the Department of Transportation. I feel they're like ready.
And we're seeing the test vehicles out on the road, Model Ys with safety drivers, running trial routes. That's what we saw at Warner Brothers the week before. This is the exact pacing we would hope to see. But again, I can understand James's point. There's uncertainty. There's the unknown unknowns.
You remember how Elon said that we're going to dip our toe? And we already actually did do Robotaxi rides at us in Warner Brothers lot. We, all of us, right?
October 10th, yes.
We were there and we actually hailed a Robotaxi. It drove us. I did it twice. So now you're already doing it right now for employees of Tesla in Fremont and Palo Alto. They're doing it now. So I think that they're already doing a portion of it, and they could be just very geo-fenced, just a very simple, from one location to another location. And then that's their dip toe launch.
I didn't get an opportunity to enjoy the taxi ride at We Robot, but I got to live vicariously through you guys, and it was very exciting. And it's very easy to see how it would work. And then the next thing, the next easy step from there is even before it works in Austin, it could work in the Boring Tunnel. The Boring Tunnel looks to me a whole lot like the Warner Brothers situation, where there's a limited number of stops. It'd be perfect application for it.
Okay. Yeah. So that was great. Thank you for doing that, James. And then, so we talked a little bit of catalysts.
2026 too, which again is dependent somewhat on 2025. Cybercab mass production. The question is, what is mass production? In my mind, it's over 1 million vehicles to achieve that, not 200 or 300. So that's, like Model Y level, that's mass. And maybe that's just my interpretation. That's kind of wrong.
So. Scale production, I think, is 100,000. 50,000 to 100,000 would be enough to be called scale production.
I think Modi needs a gigafactory, especially with the geopolitical turmoil right now. They need a hedge for China. That probably needs to happen in India. The Semi-50.
I was talking to Larry Goldberg about that, and he pushed the new gigafactory to future years. What do you guys think?
Too much uncertainty.
Yeah, too much the whole tariff game and all that. I mean, India could be one of the big winners here. And India wants to be one of the big winners, like Japan, like Vietnam. So this is shaking up Asia in a big way. And there's lots of cheap labor there. And if they play this right, India could be one of the big winners here.
Other standouts, the Robotaxi fleet greater than 100,000. Very small probability of that, 20%. Roadster, 50%. Robovan, 30%. And Robovan is not a priority. It's just a novelty, in my opinion. Batteries, 1,000 gigawatts a year, 60%. I think that's so important. And sadly, I only allocate 10% chance that the market cap would be greater than Apple and Saudi Aramco, unless, of course, oil goes to $30 and Apple gets hit by tariffs. Then that could happen.
Let me clarify that. That actually what I did was, here's 2026, and then I put these things as in no date. Didn't put a date down. These are things that can happen way in the future.
100 gigawatt hours a year. I think I could see that happening in 26. Oh, 1,000.
Yeah.
Right.
These are stated milestones by Tesla, but I didn't put a date to it because it could be many, many years away from now. Yeah.
I assumed all 2026.
No, just this group here. Do you have more? Because I did also then break out the Robotaxi 2025, 26, and then the robots and AI, and these are just beginning. There's probably, it can be fleshed out even more.
Yeah, I have those as well. This is AI and robots. Again, Gen 3, Optimus, reveal Q3 2025, 80% chance. I think they have it already. 5,000 built, 20% chance. I think they'll get to 2,000 or 3,000 maybe if we're lucky. But that's a legion, and that's a lot, as Elon says. And sometimes, he's always right, but sometimes late. Optimus Assist factory tasks, I think that's in the bag already. So I gave it 80%, but really it's probably 100%. Optimus sold to companies, Q2 2026, 50% chance. Optimus handling complex tasks, Q3 2026. That's very low, 40%, because it depends on how you define complex tasks.
Yeah.
Okay. If it's a simple repetitive task, absolutely 100%. If it's a very complex task, like putting a pipe on something and then it leaking, being able to react to that leak and fixing it, that's like an open heart surgery definition of complex task. I don't think it's going to be ready for that. Cost, 25% chance of it being 20 grand. I think it's going to be a lot more. And 50,000 Optimus made next year, 10% chance. Again, it'll be lagging, maybe 20,000, maybe 30,000. There's a lot of growing pains ramping this thing up. And then the final thing is Robotaxi stuff, milestones, Cybercab production guaranteed. The question is how many? V15, 85% chance. Unsupervised FSD in Texas, 10% chance in Q2 2025. Very low chance of that, etc.
Yeah, you put 65% this time for the Robotaxi launch in Austin.
I don't know how that crept in there because there was something. Oh, yeah, my bad. That should have been July 2025. the one I spoke about. Higher probability a month later. I think it's going to slip a month. So that's my typo.
Gotcha.
So just some ideas, and it's a brilliant list. If we could allocate the impact on share price to each one of these, multiply it by the probability, then we get our EV of stock being $600 by the year end. Who knows?
Yeah. The point is that there's so many, milestones to come.
Yeah. And just compare for the audience out there, take a minute, compare this roadmap here and milestones that are coming to any other company on the planet. Forget car makers, any other company. That will give you some perspective of what we're dealing with here.
I agree. I mean, we're so spoiled with projects and product lines and services coming. You can compare that. We spoke about Apple earlier, and I mean, Apple will probably be one of the big losers of what's happening at the moment. What are people looking forward to? The next phone, a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, a little bit thinner, a little bit. Here, new cars, full self-driving, robots. It's just crazy. It's crazy, and it's
keep going down the list. Energy, lithium.
Yeah, of course.
4680 batteries, right? Dojo, supercomputers. That's why this list that I have here is getting so long. It used to be that I'd be able to keep a list to under 20 items. And then all of a sudden it became so long because now you have to now track robots and FSD and supercomputers that you never had to do before. And then now I have to create separate lists for Robotaxi versus robots. And by the way, just James, I did put no dates to the 20,000 and for Tesla employees. That's way past 2026, I'm sure. But unlikely to happen at that time. Crazy. Tremendous amount of long list. So let's talk Elon Musk and all the companies he's created. Take a look at this table here. I put this together, just kind of wrapping it up. Because X bought XAI, there's no longer 6, there's now 5. But these are the companies currently running. Tesla, SpaceX, Boring, Neuralink, and XAI. But look at the valuation. These are massive companies' sizes at this point. And, this obviously fluctuates between 500 billion and a trillion and maybe even more, right? So any thoughts on this, guys, in terms of the companies that he's running right now?
I would just say that we wanted him to be the CEO of fewer companies, and now he is by one. Victory.
Yeah, because let's ask the question. James and Alexandra, what's the likelihood that Tesla will buy XAI or merge any of these? It's for me, it's very small, 0.
I can't see it coming. I mean, there was for a long time this idea floating, not by me, but in the market, that there would be a super company, a super holding all of those, right? And I don't see it. I mean, on top of it, how would you integrate Tesla, which has such a diverse shareholdership now, into it? But I also don't see really the need other than for us, Tesla investors, investing into XAI. And we may talk about this in a couple of weeks much more intensely once we have the proxy for this year to see whether we can vote on that. It just looks to me that the Boring Tunnel and the Boring Company and SpaceX are just so different in strategy, and also, don't want this half public exposure that you get when you are then part of Tesla, right? I don't think that's a good idea. I think we're very lucky that we have Tesla as a publicly traded company. With everything that Elon had to go through, I understand why at one point he wanted to take it private. So hoping that anything would merge, and therefore, because merging with Tesla would mean becoming public, right? Within Tesla or whatever the new entity would be called, I don't think he's going for that. I don't see any motivation for him to do that.
Yeah, and my take is he's clever enough. In fact, he's very clever. He doesn't want to make himself a target. If he owns X and XAI and Tesla and has, a monopoly over vehicle autonomy, etc., energy storage, it'll just make him more of a target. So I think there's probably less than a 20% chance of Tesla acquiring XAI. And I think the more likely scenario is some type of part shareholding, more like a 50% chance of that happening, where there's, a synergy of XAI running the brain of Optimus and the AI within a vehicle, etc., and doing some of the compute and the learning, I think that's much more likely. It mirrors what they did in the past. Years ago, I think they did something with Toyota in 2010, but that would be the more likely scenario. Or else just status quo. I don't know, keep it as is.
Well, I mean, but I think it's actually worthwhile that we talk a couple of seconds about that. I mean, there's obviously a desire by a lot of Tesla shareholders that Tesla acquires a part of xAI. Given the valuation, this would be now less than 5%, right? So the question already is it even worth it, right? Is it even worth it given the little part it has? And does it really give us any privilege? While I agree with you, a privileged relationship between them as the preferred provider, and therefore a non-compete, right? Not to go and offer it to other companies or anything like that could probably be enough. But the frustrating thing for many is that there were substantiated rumors in 2018 that Elon wanted Tesla to purchase OpenAI. So the understanding was there that Tesla needed an AI tool, a large language model tool. And I think Elon, whenever the question came up in earnings calls, was not against it, but obviously always kicked it down the road, say it's for the board to decide. And then there was the Delaware situation, nothing could be done, whatever. There were always good reasons not to touch it. Now, so expensive, it also gets a question of, is it too expensive now, right? Because it will be an investment that should be made. I agree, it's not, but an investment should be made with the aim to make money, right? Like some companies invest in Bitcoin, or some companies invest in other stock. So it is going to be, I think, a heated debate. And whilst I'm always very confident about a lot of other shareholder decisions, I'm not sure we'll get to the 50% for this one.
Sorry, 50% shareholder
to voting for the acquisition of a couple of percent of xAI.
Okay, acquisition of some percentage, not the whole company, just some percentage, right? You
we
really
can't
think
purchase the whole company? We don't have the money to purchase the whole company.
All right. So, okay, first of all, these LLMs price are hundreds of billions of dollars at this point, and they're overpriced, and they're probably going to go up and down and be very volatile. But having said that, we need to own a piece of xAI. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is going to be much larger than it is now. It is going to be so critically important to have the brains of your bot, the brains of your car, the brains that you're going to be communicating with your cars, right? Grok, and communicating everything you're doing now. It's going to be through AI, personal AI. You have to have a piece of that. You have to.
I mean, Herbert, I hear you, but I have an opposing view on that. It was critically important that the Twitter, now X, pure language supply, because
Content.
that's what it is, right? Whenever we're having a good time on X, we're actually supplying data to Grok, right? It was critically important for xAI to own Twitter, now X. It was critically important for xAI to not be a mega cap, because the engineers that in 1.5 years caught up with so many others who have been trying to do the same thing over 10 years, had to be remunerated for that, had to have options to with which they knew they would become very rich. So you could not put it into Tesla at that moment. Now it's too expensive for Tesla just to buy outright. Now the question is, what is more important?
Yeah. There's one piece of it.
What is more important? Is it more important to have a privileged supplier relationship where Grok and whatever else xAI is doing gives Tesla whatever they need? Or is it more important to invest? But if you invest, it's actually more about the financial result of it, right? Do you invest because you think this is going to make more money than any other Tesla investment, meaning any other factory or any other whatever service you develop and whatever? And I think that's a fair question to ask, because there comes the question, at what price do you purchase it? 113 billion, is an enormous price already, right? So 5% of that it will give us an equity stake, but it will not give us anything more. What we need, I think we need much more, this privileged relationship. Again, I'm all for that we do it because I still see enormous potential in XAI financially. But in terms of the privileged relationship, you can do that without an investment.
Okay, so here's the thing. Here's how you get the revenue, right? LLM companies like Microsoft, they'll make a little bit because they incorporate the AI into their Word document. LLMs companies like ChatGPT, I don't know how they're going to make money. It's a commodity at this point. They don't know. But LLM companies like XAI is the brains of the bot, which translates to real revenue. It's the brains for the cars that you're communicating with it in the car to control FSD. It'll be the general revenue. So XAI being part of Tesla and Tesla buying a piece of XAI, it is the revenue stream. So the reason why they bought X is because X will become a revenue stream. It's got unlimited numbers of...
You're saying the same than me. You're saying you're doing it because you think it's going to be a good financial investment.
Yes. For Tesla. So Tesla needs to own for both the valuation market cap rise, and I think that 100 billion is like nothing still. I know it's going to fall. It's volatile, but it's going to be nothing in years of what an AI company's worth. Tesla needs a piece of it. And then Tesla can give its revenue and vice versa. The two together will generate more real world revenue than neither. Right?
Again, I mean,
robots.
Thank heavens I should turn every day towards Austin and thank the Austin Lords. Thank heavens we're a Texas company. Can you imagine 1 second if this happens and then there's a pricing between what XAI charges Tesla for its services and then there is a valuation issue and whatever. And thank heavens there will not be a 9-share shareholder who can sue against this because it is a little bit of a closed loop. That's funny. It makes sense to all of us, but to somebody outside, it doesn't make any sense, right? So I actually think we're going to talk about this a lot, Herbert, in 2, 3, 4 weeks when we have the proxy, maybe as soon as in 2 weeks, because if that is in there, I think we have to make very clear to people what they're voting for. And we will also see how they will have valued it. I was thinking so much the last couple of weeks. Remember how suddenly they said that X, formerly Twitter, is now worth 44 billion again, minus the 12 billion credit, and then blah, 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 put it in XAI, now it's 113. I thought this is a lot of valuation. What do we need a valuation for? Well, we would need a valuation to put it in the proxy to ask whether at this price we're purchasing, right? Right?
I hope you're right. Oh my gosh.
There you go.
Nah, you're okay. All right. Interesting. I hope so, Alexandra. All right. One last quick topic. I want to make a prediction. James, I'm sure you're going to agree with me on this one. We'll see. So here's the history of what Elon Musk has done in founded, co-founded, or owned. We all remember the history, right? He started first with a company called Zip2 with his brother, Kimball. He sold it for $307 million in 1999. He created a company called X.com. Of course, now that he revives that name, that merged into PayPal. They sold that to eBay. SpaceX in 2002, Tesla in 2003. He actually started OpenAI, Boring Company, Neuralink, X, and then he bought XAI, bought X. My prediction, if you follow this along, that he's going to create another company in the next year.
The Mars East India company?
Yeah, I was going to say Mars Tourism as a joke.
I think it's going to be food related or housing related. But my point is that people think that Tesla is going to just stick around. There's going to be new products that Tesla will get into, and there's going to be a net new company that Elon's going to create a year or 2 years from now.
What he needs is a Gwen Shotwell at each of these companies to turn his vision into execution in ways that don't require physical, hands-on, everyday, roll up the sleeves, be there kind of thing. That would free him up to new endeavors.
I think he is already front and center in all the colliding S-curves that exist right now, and I don't see anything else that's big. But what there is unlocking the synergy between some of these companies as well, which is huge. And I do want to say one thing as well, and it was a great point that Alexandra made a few days ago on Twitter, or maybe yesterday, maybe today. I don't know. I can't remember. I see so much. But how his companies now are a matter of national security. That needs to be emphasized again and again. The only one way we can compete, a lot of people say we can't compete with China. Yeah, he can. This guy can. Maybe other companies can't. But that is going to be of strategic importance, especially bots with increasing GDP per capita and infinite ROIs, et cetera. That is just absolutely the most important thing. And I hope the leadership in this country is aware of that.
But I mean, can't we all acknowledge how, I mean, bad mouth will say lucky, but how smart he was investing in GPUs when there were no tariffs on it yet, when he bought them in huge amounts and everybody was screaming, oh my God, all this money. I mean, all this money, you gotta be kidding. It was 6 or 7 billion when others are buying for 50 billion and are still nowhere, right? I mean, Llama 4, no, I'm not gonna go there. So the when it comes to strategy and preparing all of these companies to be operational and as forward-looking as possible, there's just nobody else out there. Nobody.
Two things that Elon just did that today we're realizing was brilliant, right? So number one was he decided not to move forward with Giga Mexico. Remember, we all thought that was going to happen. And Giga India, by the way. He pushed those off. Now we are realizing what a smart move that was, particularly with the tariffs and all that. And then secondly, the lithium refinery. He made that decision, 2 years ago? Said we got to get into lithium. And now with the tariffs on the Chinese, batteries coming in, we are turning on lithium. And the other way, the other thing too is 4680s. That was delayed, but luckily it's now going in scale this year. Luckily. But if that wasn't in place and the lithium refinery wasn't in place, we'd be in really big trouble looking for batteries.
And isn't it funny how people always, he's always late, he's always late. No, for lots of things, he's actually very early on preparing, seeing the issue, seeing the conflict that may arise and acting upon it. Because I mean, I don't know how many times he told us, I really don't want to go into lithium, but we have no other choice. So, and then he does it despite, cheaper and easier versions being immediately available, but just, being sufficiently prudent and being sufficiently foresighty to just do it. Nevertheless, this is something. Yeah, and when people tell us, "Oh my gosh, you're fangirling," no, I'm not fangirling. I've studied the guy. I mean, and I criticized him. You heard me criticizing him on Tuesday and again today. But it's, I mean, in terms of business decision and leadership, I've never come across anybody even halfway comparable.
No, and what's very special is the ability to have foresight 8 years into the future and to position 8 years ahead of time for all the eventualities that come to fruition. That is why he's so special. Yeah, and he goes after the hardest things.
And going the difficult way, not trying to go shortcuts, not trying to say, okay, we can do it cheaper, we can do it easier, whatever. No. Understanding that vertical integration is everything and limits so many other risks. Also the fact that he didn't go into debt. I mean, it was crazy how little debt there always was. And during high interest rate periods, Tesla didn't suffer. So, and that's why I say, by the way, Herbert, we're not going to invest more than 5 or 6 or 7 billion into that, because he would never accept that the cash flow just gets spent on something that he doesn't consider a major opportunity.
Yep. No, it's very special. And of course, the effectiveness and efficiency of being able to shave every penny off every process, eliminate every product, and literally achieve the impossible and do everything himself.
Every day and everywhere.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So the biggest roadblocks, right, is chips. And then you've got NVIDIA. He's got a relationship with NVIDIA. He's good friends with, Jensen Huang. They've been having that for many years. Then the next thing is transformers. And guess what? Did you guys remember what happened just this week, right? Drew Baglino used to work at Tesla for decades. I'm sure they're very good friends still. He launched a new company called Huron to create transformers, which Elon was saying is the next big rate limiting thing for AI data centers. And he's got the relationship with a guy that's going to work on that. So brilliant. Okay, so wow, so we lost Brian. He had to take off, but boy, just a powerhouse of intelligent people here. Brain Trust. I appreciate Brian from Futuraza. Check out his website. James, you're such in big demand. People just keep asking, can we have James on again and on again? So we appreciate you joining us once a month and as often as you can, James. Appreciate you. Check out his channel, InvestAnswers, and of course, Tesla Boomer Mama, Alexandra. The brain.
Always a pleasure.
The best. Thanks, everybody.
And thank you for your milestones. I'm going to take another swipe at those and try add earnings per share or
we all want to know which ones are catalysts. That's what everybody's. I'm very clear that they're called milestone tables, and people hit me. See, none of your milestones. No, only some of them are. So please, James, help us figure out which are true stock catalysts. The rest are milestones. Just track the company progress.
Big Google sheet. I sent you the deck, and I'll send you the Google sheet as well after. Okay.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.